And we are in the Chicago region in the heartland of America. And it is the 18th of August, 2016. Beautiful full moon day. Lots of clouds and rain, and we're getting the whole Grand Theater effect here. How are you this morning, Barrett?
I'm doing great. It sounded like someone just buzzed in on your game show.
Yeah, it did, and I don't know where that came from, unless it was. Oh, I do have my Facebook page open, so that must have been what it was. But and there is a game show going on. It's called "You Bet Your Life," and, and if you are betting that your life is in your body, well, then I think we have bad news for you this morning. So
Well, maybe good news. Good news that you lost the bet, but you still have what you really are, which is love, which is joy, which is truth. I mean, I think Jesus in a lot of ways is telling us, be glad you were wrong. Be glad you lost that bet. Because if your bet was actually a winning bet, then suffering would be inevitable, and loss would be, guaranteed. But we're coming to see that we don't have to buy into or accept that ego worldview. We don't really have to look at it through eyes of pain and suffering. And so, if that's a bet I placed, I hope I lose, and I know I am losing that bet.
yes, I think those of us who are starting to, at least look around and question things are actually beginning to realize none of this is what it appears to be, and this is a very, 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 very good thing. So, and you had mentioned Jesus. A lot of times when people are talking about Jesus, my mind goes back to the true imagery around Jesus. We all see Jesus in these paintings depicted as this old guy with a bunch of old guys with white beards and everything else hanging on around him. And the reality is that he was, in fact, the old guy in the group, but the oldest of the apostles, Simon Peter, I think was probably 19. There's a lot of conjecture about the actual age.
Wow.
So, and then the rest of them were younger than that. So here's a guy who's 33 years old, who has a following of a dozen absolutely rabid teenagers who are supporting him in his work. And my goodness, the Christian conservatives they would probably lose their mind if that scenario showed up in modern times. But, all of these stories we have about Jesus are based on a lot of unfounded myths. But when we look at the era and the content of his life, he starts his life off being born of a virgin. Well, in that era, a virgin was either somebody who was an incredibly ugly 14-year-old, or else somebody who was 12 and ready to embrace motherhood. So when we imagine Mary on the donkey traveling through the desert, this was probably a 13-year-old girl. How many Madonnas do we see that portray her on that level? So yeah, it's all illusion. It's all a game of shadows, and that's what we're approaching in our discussion about A Course in Miracles. How what you imagine and what you believe may not be what historically correct, and ultimately it undermines the whole illusion, which is none of this is real.
Yeah, and that is a happy message if we really accept that what we are is real, and what we are is love, what we are is peace, what we are is joy. So that's really a nice thing. We're kind of going through the manual for chapter 19 in the text, and the section that we're on is the fear of God that we started with last week. And this is the reason why we are not experiencing that truth, because we're actually afraid of it. We're afraid of that all-embracing oneness, because if we accepted that, then we wouldn't be this individual self. And we've kind of made a hidden vow to believe in this individual self and all of the things that go along with the ego. So I'm going to jump right in with what's a kind of intense but really illuminating paragraph 6 in this section. And here he's talking about how eventually we come to see our false vow to the ego and everything that goes with it. And now you stand in terror before which you swore never to look upon. Your eyes look down, remembering your promise to your friends. The loveliness of sin, the delicate appeal of guilt, the holy waxen image of death, and the fear of vengeance of the ego you swore in blood not to desert, all rise and bid you not to raise your eyes. For you realize that if you look on this and let the veil be lifted, they will be gone forever. All of your friends, your protectors, and your home will vanish. Nothing that you remember now will you remember. It seems to you the world will utterly abandon you if you but raise your eyes. Yet all that will occur is you will leave the world forever. This is the reestablishment of your will. Look upon it open-eyed, and you will never more believe that you are at the mercy of things beyond you, forces you cannot control, and thoughts that come to you against your will. It is your will to look on this. No mad desire, no trivial impulse to forget again, no stab of fear, nor the cold sweat of seeming death can stand against your will. For what attracts you from beyond the veil is also deep within you, unseparated from it, and completely one. So we get a very clear description of our last choice against the thought of separation and our resistance to it. Why this process sometimes seems to be so challenging. You know, once we sort of get the ideas in the Course that what we really are is perfect love, and that nothing that has any fear attached to it is real, we start to question, well, why am I still choosing the fear? Why am I still choosing the guilt? Why am I still choosing to believe in my individual self? And these couple paragraphs I just read, they spell it out pretty clearly, that we are deeply afraid of letting go of the ego's hand because we think that we might be annihilated if we do. But all that will really happen is that the ego will be undone and will return to our truth forever. So I think, you know, just to kind of see the dynamics will help us as we go through our lives. And when we stumble and choose the ego's hand again, we can be a little gentler with ourselves as we realize what we're doing.
Exactly. And one of the things that we always have to come back to and really look at, examine, is that we created the ego. So this is our child. This is our dearest and most important creation in our current memory. And within that, you know, if you watch your parent, either mother or father, if they are on point, they will protect their child and happily sacrifice everything they have for the protection of that child. Well, that's what's going on here. We are willing to surrender to the idea of death, you know, in order to protect that ego that we have birthed. And that is, I'm not going to say it's so much a thing that's pathetic or whatever. It is just simply so delusional that it causes us to attack everybody that we in any way perceive to be a threat to that ego. So we end up falling into a posture of vicious attacks on everybody who approaches us. And that's what keeps perpetuating the insanity of this dream world. And really, you know, for me this year, watching what's going on around us it it really has become very in your face. It is no longer hidden. It is no longer subtle. We have to really be willing to look at the fact that everything that's going on out there is causing us to fear for our life, to fear for our ego, to fear for, being damaged by exterior forces. And of course, the only exterior forces are those that are in our own mind. So we're attacking ourselves to reinforce the idea that we can't let go of the ego.
Yeah, so it's this kind of twisted but self-reinforcing cycle, and the reason that we look so deeply at it, why do we need to look at this pain? Why do we need to look at this thought system that's so twisted? Is because that helps us to stop the cycle. Just like there's a vicious cycle, which is the ego's self-reinforcing a thought system. There's the virtuous cycle, which is the Holy Spirit's recognition that there's nothing to the ego, that the ego is simply a false idea that we have invested our belief in, and that investment of belief is the real issue. As we relinquish our belief in the ego is undone. And ultimately, when we don't believe in it at all, then there's nothing left. And that's our state of pure peace and pure joy. So I think it's helpful to remember that's why we're looking at this. That's why we're going into this, so that we can undo it and return to our truth. Because the truth is happy, the truth is joyful. And even as we're looking at things like the fear of death and the fear of God, the purpose in doing this is to have you feel happy. And it sounds a little funny to say it like that, but that's the goal. That's really why we're having these discussions in the first place.
Exactly. And, one of the things that I've been noticing over the last couple of weeks, it seems like there's a spike in activity on various Course in Miracles groups that are floating around, especially on Facebook, but some of the other ones on the internet, where somebody comes in and says, oh, this person is using the Course to make money and self-aggrandizement. And, I really find it humorous that even in the most entrenched community in A Course in Miracles, we have occasionally witness of this kind of dysfunctional thinking. And, my first thought when I first started encountering these dialogues going on was to say, oh no, blah, 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 and write out a 3-paragraph rebuttal and get into a defensive posture and, and then step out of it in a very self-righteous way, saying, it's up to you to remove that beam from your eye and worry less about the mote in your brother's eye. But of course, that's falling right into the same trap. So, it's just so redundant. It is just so prolific. And we have to really be present-minded at all times and living in that place where our response to everything that's going on around us is, number one, forgiveness. It never really happened. This is the illusion. And number two, just pour an ocean of love into it. Because everybody that is struggling is a part of you. So it's your struggle. It's very personal. It's very intimate. And that's why you have to be willing to embrace this illusion of a separate self around you, attacking you or your belief system in A Course in Miracles. We have to love our way out of this situation. We're not going to get anywhere by attacking in the name of righteousness, because that simply doesn't work. That's an oxymoron.
It is a great story, and I appreciate your insight, because it reminds me of the first Course in Miracles conference I went to, which was out in San Francisco in 2009. And I'd studied a few different teachers, Gary Renard, Ken Wapnick, and I went to the conference, and there were people presenting very different ideas about what the Course was saying, and I found myself getting very judgmental and defensive as well. And then realizing, well, that's my healing work. That the thought came to me that was really helpful was, I let Christians believe whatever they believe, even though I don't think it's true. Why do I not have the same attitude towards Course in Miracles students or teachers? And that helped me a lot. I was like, okay, I don't need to be the enforcer of what is true.
Exactly. That's way too burdensome a job. And, then it spreads out, then it gets like spilled milk. And all of a sudden, then we're having to look at all the people who are engaged in Islam and Hinduism and Buddhism and atheists and all the other ists. And we really have populated our lives with all of these opportunities to make ourselves crazy and to retrograde backwards out of that first stage of enlightenment that we're all approaching. So that really is what I think is the current challenge for all of us who are really putting a lot of attention on turning the next page in the book.
Well, since you said turning the next page in the book, I'm literally going to do that, and I'm going to read another paragraph.
I thought that you would love that opening I gave you.
So I'm going to move up to paragraph 11. And since we're talking about the fear of God, he kind of gives us a little advice. He says, to look upon the fear of God does need some preparation. Only the sane can look on stark insanity and raving madness with pity and compassion, but not with fear. For only if they share in it does it seem fearful, and you do share in it until you look upon your brother with perfect faith and love and tenderness. So this is exactly what you and I are just talking about, that, we go into these interactions, and at times it feels like, oh, I need to make a point, or I need to tell someone how it is. And then we really understand that no, there's no one out there anyway. I mean, since this is all a dream, since this is all an illusion, whenever I'm telling someone they're wrong, I'm really telling myself that I'm wrong. And that's not the message we really want to send. We do want to let go of any false ideas or beliefs we have, but to do so without any sort of judgment, without any sort of condemnation of ourself or guilt towards ourself. And, it's easy to say, it's not always easy to implement, but that's why it is an ongoing practice, that we just keep working on it. And we do find we get better. And usually by better, I mean, we get stuck in the guilt for shorter periods of time. We get stuck in the upset for shorter periods of time. And that in itself is a pretty big blessing.
It is. It's an immense payoff. It is a direct path to the peace that passeth understanding, to live in that state of inner tranquility and to not have your feathers ruffled by the first breeze that comes along. And Barrett, one of the things that I love that is reiterated occasionally in the Course is that you have to get to a point where you absolutely trust your brother. Well, that means everybody on the frickin' planet, everybody that's around you. And getting out in traffic, and you got somebody tailgating you, you got somebody cutting you off, you got somebody slamming on the brakes in front of you. To not be able to respond to that with anger and frustration and flipping them off and hitting your horn, but to just know, oh, this is my brother, and I trust him implicitly, and I trust myself, and I trust God, and I trust Christ, and I trust the Holy Spirit. It's all back to trust. And when we can start living our trust, that's when we start making significant progress to reclaiming our truth and ultimately to empowering ourselves over this trivial world that we are surrounded by.
Yeah. I was wondering if that was you flipping me off when I had to slam my brakes on that one time.
That was it. But with me, it's more than just me. It's usually, like the dog in the back seat is baring his fangs, going, let me get my teeth into that sucker's neck. So, and of course, the dog in the back seat is your own damned ego, and you really have to look at that.
Well, I'm having a good time here, but I know we're running short on time for today anyway. So this has been a really good talk, and yeah, good to end on a funny but helpful note.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of things coming up. So check out Barrett's website, check out my website. And as we're moving toward autumn, we'll have more to share with you about all these wonderful events.
All right, well, that sounds good. So you have a beautiful sunny summer day out there, Chris. And yeah, I'm looking forward. I'll see you in a week.
Sounds good. Talk to you later.
All right, bye, man.